Welcome to another episode of Hillcats at Home. On this week's episode, Peter's going to be back with a Merch Minute. Joe's got another podcast for you, and this week's podcast is one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and the guest on that podcast is a Lynchburg native, so you're going to want to stick around and check that out. Austin's back with another bad baseball joke of the week. I'll tell you about the blood drive coming up this next week. We've got a fan question, and this week's fan question is answered by none other than the 2019 MVP for your Lynchburg Hillcats, Stephen Kwon. I'm going to tell you what's happening on weekends at the baseball stadium. In the Around the Elmore segment, I'm going to tell you how our sister team, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, are supporting a local high school. We're going to talk to Southpaw and lots more. It's a busy day for this week's episode of Hillcats at Home, so stick around. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Hillcats at Home. I'm your host, Jeff Raymond, coming to you this week from the town I consider my second home, New Braunfels, Texas. Coming up at the ballpark, the Lynchburg Hillcats welcome various high school travel teams from around the country to play ball on a professional field. If you've been looking for baseball, head on over to our social media pages and keep an eye out for your chance to get some tickets and finally get a little baseball in at the ballpark. This past Monday, June 8th, the Lynchburg Hillcats welcomed the graduates of the Lynchburg Fire Academy. We appreciate your service, we can't wait to see you around town, and we welcome you to our very next First Responders Night. This next week, June 16th and 17th, the Lynchburg Hillcats have partnered with the American Red Cross to host a blood drive from 12 noon to 6 p.m. on both days. Get yourself an appointment, come on out, donate blood, and please help us help the American Red Cross give life. Now it's time for Peter's Merch Minute.
Hey Hillcats fans, it's Peter. I'm back in the Caddy Shack for this week's Merch Minute. Well fans, as we climb out of the pandemic, this week I thought to have a little fun with our item of the week. And so, if you're anything like me, you've been wearing sweatpants, probably some flip-flops or some slippers. So as you return to the office and wearing slacks, get some casual dress socks, Hillcat style, $15. They're awesome, very comfortable. And then as you get back into that post-quarantine, workout phase, I packed on a few pounds. Get yourself some athletic socks. You'll be styling in the gym and also supporting the local business here with the Lynchburg Hillcats. So thank you all for your support. And as always, go Hillcats.
And now here's head groundskeeper Joseph Knight with his podcast of the week. This week's podcast is one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and the guest on this podcast is a Lynchburg local that you may have met if you came to a baseball game last season.
What's up, everybody? I got another podcast for you this week. I hope you enjoyed the ones I've given you so far, but I think this one will probably be, it's one of my favorites, and it'll probably be one of y'all's favorites. This week, I'm going to recommend the Joe Rogan Experience, episode number 1483. And if you remember last year, we had a special guest at one of the games from Lynchburg that won a show on the History Channel called Alone, Jordan Jonas. He joins Joe Rogan on this podcast and talks about his life, how he ended up getting on the show, the skill, how he acquired the skills that he has. Talks about his life as a hobo, going to Russia and living with the Serbians and the nomad lifestyle. It's really interesting stuff. And for those of you that remember him at the game last year, I think he threw out a first pitch and brought a lot of the stuff he made on the show. He talks about the show and some of the process of it, and it's just a really cool podcast. It's very long, like all of Joe Rogan's podcasts. So if you have nothing to do, it should keep you entertained for a while. But again, that's Joe Rogan Experience, episode 1483 with Jordan Jonas, and he lives in Lynchburg, so it's pretty cool to see somebody like that on a podcast that size. So go check it out.
Thanks, Joe. Jordan Jonas is a really, really nice guy, and I cannot wait to check out this episode of the Joe Rogan podcast. And now, here's Austin with Austin's Bad Baseball Joke of the Week.
Hey guys, this is Austin with Hillcats at Home, and this is this week's Bad Baseball Joke of the Week. This week's joke is, why does it take so long to run from second base to third base? It's because there's a shortstop in between. That's this week's Bad Baseball Joke of the Week. Tune in next week and we'll get you guys another bad baseball joke. Until then, have a safe week, everybody.
Austin, you never disappoint. Thanks, buddy. This week's Around the Elmore segment features our sister team, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, once again. On June 5th, the Amarillo Sod Poodles hosted the graduation for Premier High School, and not only did they host the graduation, they streamed it live on their Facebook page. Now, this was a great thing for them to do, and it was a great way for everyone that couldn't be there due to social distancing to be able to participate, and all the friends and family around the world to be able to watch their high school graduate walk across the threshold. Amarillo Sod Poodles, good job, and we can't wait to see what you do next time. And now it's time for this week's question of the week. This week's question comes from Katie, and to answer this week's question, please welcome 2019 Lynchburg Hillcats MVP Stephen Kwan.
One of the great things about the Hillcats Stadium is there are some great seats that are really close to the field. And I wonder how, as a player, you feel when we're calling out to you by name. Can you hear us? Can you make out what we're saying? And do you find that distracting? How do you stay focused when the crowd is getting really wild and calling out to you?
Hi there. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think what's awesome about the Hillcats home field is that, down the third base line, the fans are super close. So yeah, we can definitely hear you guys. I think it's really cool when you guys, say our names and everything. We have nice little interaction. I think it's awesome. But during the game, I would say we don't really. This is just for me. We don't really hear the kind of noise coming in. We're so locked into what we're doing, and we don't hear any of that. It's awesome to hear you guys though. Thanks for that.
Checking in on Southpaw. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. And once again, it's time to check on our old buddy Southpaw to see where he's hanging out this week at the ballpark. Southpaw, on the bright side, you definitely look comfortable. Well, that wraps up another edition of Hillcats at Home. Thank you for joining me. Thanks again to Katie for your question. A very special thank you to 2019 Lynchburg Hillcats MVP Stephen Kwan for taking the time to answer her question. Don't forget to join us at the ballpark next Tuesday and Wednesday, June 16th and 17th, for our blood drive with the American Red Cross. From New Braunfels, Texas, I'm Jeff Raymond. I will see you again right here next Friday at 5 p.m. for another episode of Hillcats at Home. Have a great week.